Hi, and welcome to GSD Collective. I am here with the famous Kevin Kauffman, and I am so excited to interview him today. And we're talking about internet follow-up systems, lead generation systems. And so, Kevin, would you please give them a quick intro on yourself and your team and how long you've been in the business?
Yeah, you said, first of all, you said famous. You left out a couple letters. Infamous might be more accurate, but thanks a lot for having me here, Shannon. I really appreciate it. For those of you who can't tell, Shannon and I go back quite a ways. There's a camera involved, and I'll just leave it at that. You reach out to Shannon if you want more information.
No single lens
she
today.
promised me. Yeah, no single lens today. So my name is Kevin Kauffman. I am the co-owner, co-founder, whatever you want to call it, of a real estate business team called Group 4610, where we are located here. I'm in Tempe, Arizona. This is like home base for us. But we happen to be one of those weirdos that sell real estate in a few different cities and states. So we're also sell real estate currently in Denver, Colorado, Nashville, Tennessee, and San Luis Obispo, California area.
Oh, Pismo Beach. That's one of my favorite places to visit ever.
Such a great area.
Yeah. Okay. So how long have you been in real estate?
So let's see. I've been in real estate now since May or June. I never remember the exact day of 2007. And so 13 and a half years or so right now. And then my business partner, Fred, and I started working together. It'll be 13 years ago in February. So February, like 1st or 2nd of 2008, we started working together. So I'd been in the business for, all of 6 months or so at that time when we teamed up, and we got our start in the short sale world. And that was, man, we could have a talk about short sale systems sometimes. But our team has taken on a ton of different iterations and growth and challenges along the way. I always like to say we've been punched in the nose and in the teeth plenty of times, like anybody who's been in the business for this long. And we've learned a few things, and we've definitely made a lot of mistakes, but we're still standing. So that's good. We'll do about 110 million or so in volume this year on about 300-ish transactions.
That's awesome. So do you guys still wear flip-flops everywhere?
Yeah, whenever possible. Yeah. And by whenever possible, I mean pretty much all the time. If I'm wearing shoes, it's for safety reasons and safety reasons only.
So the first time I remember I saw you and Kevin, or you and Fred, up on stage, I thought, first of all, who are these guys? Secondly, they're wearing flip-flops and they're at a national convention up on stage. I've got to get to know who these two dudes are.
Kind of brash. Yeah. It was just sort of like, that's just who we are, yeah. That's, we figured as long as we put flip-flops in our logo, we could get away with it.
No, I think that's awesome. It was brilliant. So you and I were talking about systems, Kevin, and you and Fred obviously have mastered systems in a lot of different ways, especially taking teams across the country and with, having an expansion of your home base. I really want to hone in today on your internet lead generation and what those systems are and how you and Fred have put those together. What are some of the most important steps? Because a lot of people look at these internet leads and first of all, they're buying a lot of leads and they don't know then what to do with them, or they have a lot of leads and they have no follow-up systems, right? So talk to me about some of the systems that you guys have put in place.
Yeah. So, you sort of already hinted at it. Like here's the thing with internet leads, right? I say leads, registrations. They're, first of all, I always like to remind our agents that first of all, it's a human being on the other end of that, screen or whatever. But at the end of the day, they're easy to come by, right? Here's the deal. In our industry at this point, it's never about how to get leads. That's not it. Like if that's the question you're asking, I promise you're asking the wrong question, right? It's about what do you do with them? And that's the thing with internet leads. And we figured this out a long time ago, which was, it's not about how to get them, what you pay for them, et cetera. Like all of that plays into the overall system that you want to set up for your business. However, it's really all about the follow-up, because when you look at internet leads as a whole, and granted, I'm going to make these numbers up off the top of my head, but trust me, they're not far off. Let's say if you get 100 leads, right, that registered on your website, or 100 internet leads from some sort of internet lead source, I don't care which one. They're relatively all the same. They're going to be, a couple things are going to be true. Number one, they're not only on your website, they're on 5 or 10 other agents' website in your city. So let's just be really clear. They're not just on your website. And for sure, they're on Zillow, Redfin, et cetera, any of the other, Movoto, all of the other much nicer websites, they're on there too. Now, the other thing is, of the 100, you might have 3, maybe 5 of them that are going to buy or sell in the next, I'll call it 90 days, if you're lucky. Then you've got the other 95 that they're going to do something between 90 days and 24 months.
Okay, so time out. 5% are going to be pretty quick,
Yeah.
and the rest of them are a long tail.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I always call that, like, that 5%, that's the low hanging fruit. But
Mhm.
here's the other thing. Here's what I also say, sort of in secret, if you will, or within the confines of our business. That other 95%, that's actually what I call the lower hanging fruit. You just gotta have patience, and you've got to be willing to be consistent. And so what I know is, I can think of all these different lead sources that we've had or used over the years, or that I've known other agents that have used. I've talked about in different masterminds and whatnot. And every single time I've had a lead source that I loved, I'd hear from 10 other people that they absolutely hated that lead source.
Mhm.
And so what I realized fairly early on is it has nothing to do with the lead source, right? Maybe has a little tiny bit, but like 1%, not everything. And it has everything to do with how do you execute with those leads when it comes down to it. And that's where I think what we're talking about today is systems come into such a big play into determining whether or not you're going to be successful with those leads.
So what CRM or what follow-up system are you using to curate these leads?
So I'm gonna give you that answer, but I'm also
Okay.
going to tell you that I also don't believe that matters in
I
a lot
agree.
of ways. So we are currently using Follow Up Boss.
Okay. Me too.
And the reason why is because it works in conjunction much better with the company that we are, for lack of a better word, all in on when it comes to our digital spend. And I'll talk about those systems. I'm definitely not trying to keep that a secret, because I love those guys, and they're doing amazing things. Um, so, but listen, we just spent the last couple of years on Commissions Inc. Nothing wrong with that system. It's great. Prior to that, we spent the last 5 years with Boomtown. And prior to
Okay.
that, we were on Infusionsoft, which isn't
Mhm.
even built for real estate. It just doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is how effective are you going to be in over the course of that next 18 to 24 months, because everyone's fighting over that 5%, those 5 deals that that are probably going to do the deal sooner. That's where all the competition is. And then everyone sort of lets off the other 95%. And that's really where the fortune is. It's in all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying don't go get those 5%. We want as many of those as possible. But what
Right.
I'm saying is the real money comes 12 months later, 24 months later from date of that person or that lead hitting your system. And
Okay.
that's that.
So time out.
Okay.
So it's just like when we talk about the extra mile, how the extra mile is never crowded. The extra mile to me here is the 12 to 24 months.
Yeah.
So most agents have probably dropped off by this point and they're out of the touch game.
Yeah, they are for sure. Like, they're not even doing the automated touches anymore.
Okay.
And that's, to me, it's such a miss. Like, so many agents have come to me over the years and said, hey, I'm thinking about buying this lead source, fill in the blank. And I'm like, cool. How long can you afford to do that without getting a closing?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is not 12, like, I just pretty much always tell them, don't do it. Not to say that you won't get a closing from it in under 12 months, but if you're not mentally there already to make that investment, then don't, because you're going to get frustrated with it too early and you're going to quit on it. It's that 3 feet from gold thing, right? You're going to get there. You're going to give it 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, and you're going to quit right before everything would probably break, just totally break through for you if you didn't quit. And so you've got to know, like, when you go into something, commit to it for a year. If you're not going to give it a year of like actual commitment when it comes to your lead generation, and again, most important piece, follow up, then just save the money and wait till you find something where you do feel good about spending the money on for a year.
So are a lot of your follow-up plans automated?
So automation is definitely a big part of all of our follow-up plans, right? So
Mhm.
there are different mixes, and part of it just depends on where we're at. Let's just talk specifically, because you brought up that extra mile. So month 12 to 24, there's a ton of automation in there, right?
Okay.
everything from AI texting to retargeting and remarketing on social media to those same people, to monthly emails, and using different systems like, some of the tools that we use are like, say, viral marketing and HomeBot. Those are two of our favorite tools that are absolutely massively beneficial for us when it comes to staying in front of people. By the way, you can use those tools for your sphere as well for the long term, right? And so we've got to have automated, and then we've also got to have some stuff where we're also reaching out. Like, you got to make at least, if we're not still making a phone call a quarter, preferably one a month,
Okay.
at that point, like, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. You've heard this saying before, Shannon, because like you and I, we have similar background, right? I'll never forget my team leader saying this to me really early in my career. She said, Kevin, the number of your success in real estate is correlated with the number of people when they think about real estate, they think about you.
Hmm.
Her name was Steph Martini. She used to say that to me all the time. And I was like, Steph, I get it. I got it. But then I was thinking about it, I was like, it's partially true. It's only part of the story, because what my experience told me is that because I'm stubborn, you know that, right? So as
No,
I got like
no.
deeper and deeper into having success with internet leads, what I realized is I was also having a lot of dumb luck. And the dumb luck was because I just happened to be the dude calling that day when they were thinking about real estate. And so I realized, I'm like, okay, so there's that, the number of people when they think about you, they think about real estate, they think about you. That's your sphere of influence, things like that. Then I realized, but there's this other segment of people that when they are thinking about real estate, we happen to be the person in front of them. You can only happen to be the person in front of them if you're in front of them and actually calling them or sending a personal email and staying in touch for a long period of time. And so that was when we really started to develop sort of our long-term game plan, which has, no doubt, it's changed and we've polished it over the years. And we've used things like the company I referenced earlier is called Ylopo, who we use for the front end lead generation at this point, but we also use them because of their artificial intelligent texting features, as well as the ability to retarget, remarket within their system. We also use them for all that long-term stuff as well
Okay, so
when it
time
comes
out.
to that extra mile.
Because I'm sure people are thinking, what's Ylopo? Ylopo is your website, correct?
Yeah. So
It
think
has
of it.
a website component.
Yep. It's got a website component. So think IDX, someone can come to your website, search for homes. They are digital marketing specialists, if you will. Like they're not a CRM. They actually have to attach to a CRM. So I mentioned Follow Up Boss.
Mhm.
The reason we're on Follow Up Boss now is because they don't have a front end, right? So that you've got to attach one to it. Ylopo happens to be that. And if you're going, what the heck is Ylopo? It's like, it's the last couple of letters of Monopoly spelled backwards. That's what the
Oh,
founder keeps telling me. So
okay.
he's a smart guy. I like him and I trust him. So why Lopo, YLOPO, amazing system. Not only generate leads, but they also have things that, like, ton of tools for that long-term follow-up. Like, we've got legitimately, no exaggeration, 40,000 plus leads in our database here in Phoenix. This is where we've been operating the longest. So what do we do when we logged on, or I should say when we signed on with Ylopo, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so for the first time? First thing we did is we imported those and we started doing their retargeting, remarketing, re-engagement campaign before we
Mhm.
ever generated a new lead, because we want to make sure that we know that we're getting as much out of that database as we can.
Okay.
And over time, like, I know that, like, as an example, let's say I could never generate a new lead again for whatever online, like I could only get them from, say, my sphere or face to face, something like that. I know that if I just have those 40,000 and I treat them correctly, I'm good. We can close 400 transactions a year from now until eternity.
So do you ever wonder, like, how do I push the fast forward button to get them to 12 months so I get into the extra mile quicker?
So yes and no. Like, we're always, so what we do is we just always have a steady flow coming in, and we're just always making sure that we're focused on those old leads. It's so funny because, no one really wants to call old leads. Everyone will say, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'll do that. But it's not fun. Like, it's not fun and it's not sexy to sit there and call leads that feel like they're stale. They feel like they're a year old. I can't tell you, and because I literally lost count, how many people in my career, especially when I was the one in the trenches going on the listing appointments, they would laugh because I caught them on the phone after calling them once or twice a month, if not more often, for the previous year. And
Mhm.
they would just laugh because it's like they accidentally picked up that day, or it's because I called from Fred's phone instead of mine. And they're like, you caught me and I'm sorry, I haven't called you back. And as soon as I'm ready, the listing's yours, or some form of that conversation. And my response, my script was always the same, is like, don't worry, Shannon, it's not your job to follow up. It's mine. Like,
Yeah.
you
That's
don't have to
awesome.
apologize to me. It's my job to follow up.
So
And so,
if you have no other system, Kevin, it sounds like calling once or twice a month to all of those old leads is probably just a really good step.
yeah. And I mean, here's the deal. If you can't, like, if you build up more than you could possibly call, then drop a ringless voicemail once a month at a minimum.
Yeah.
And then call on the other month, like call on the, you know what I mean? Just space them out, but have some sort of long-term follow-up. And at this point, any CRM on the planet, almost all of them, I can't imagine there's any that don't have some sort of built-in plans where you can at least set some auto emails at a
Right.
minimum so they see your name. I'm not saying that's good follow-up. I'm just saying that's part of the plan. So you should be able to at least do that. If you can do that, a phone call and like say maybe a ringless voicemail drop, then you're doing more than like probably 80% of the other realtors in your town. So you're going to be good.
And then how do you use viral marketing with that?
So the other thing with viral marketing is for those of you who aren't familiar, it's video marketing. So it's creating it's content based, education based reasons to stay in front of your sphere. So twice a month, Fred and I record a video, different topics, say like the Phoenix market, or is now a good time to buy a second home? It's now a good time to sell, how to prep your house, stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
We record a video. Trust me, not many people are watching the video, and it doesn't matter. What matters is they're getting a screenshot in their email once a month with our face, and they can press play, and a certain number of them press play, and then a certain number of them press the links to go to the home valuation site, and a certain number of them press the links to go search for stuff. The whole point is staying in front of people. And now, one thing I want to say, not all of our leads get there. Like, we've got to at least have spoken to somebody and have some
Okay.
sort of dialogue, right? Those people I'll move over to the viral database.
Okay.
And then say I will put cold leads into HomeBot, however, because I think that's an amazing tool. And then at the price, I always call it the biggest no-brainer
Okay. So
in real
explain
estate.
that because that one's new to me.
HomeBot is, for lack of a better word, a financial statement for your home. So instead of doing a home valuation email, it
Mhm.
reads more like a financial statement you'd get from your wealth manager.
So
And
if you were doing real estate reviews like from Ninja, that would be an amazing tool to have.
it is so cool. Here's the deal. I've never done anything that's stickier. And when I say that, what I'm referencing is the open rate is high.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't like, listen, if you send a really well written email and you get, like, I'm happy if I'm getting 30% open rates. Like, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We're getting like 80 and 90% open rates on HomeBot and have been for a year. So first of
Wow.
all, it gets delivered and it gets opened. But number two, it also gets opened multiple times and it gets played with. And the homeowner can go in and they can change like their balance or their interest rate. And it gives them ideas and projections of what they could do with their equity.
Hmm.
And you ready for the price?
Yeah.
You might not even believe me.
Tell me.
It's $25 a month.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
Okay. I'm signing up for that as soon as we get off the call. That's
So
easy.
so it works in conjunction with a lender who also pays 25. So I guess technically it's $50, but you pay
Okay.
25, the lender pays 25, and you do want a lender. So ask your lender whatever city you're in, ask your local lender, your preferred lender, if they are already on a HomeBot and if
Okay.
they'll participate in it with you. Because when it's hooked to a lender as well, there's just more tools available to the homeowner. So it becomes more valuable for them. You get 500 people for $25 a month.
Wow.
If you got 1,000 people, then you're going to be out all of $50 a month. So that's what I mean. Like it's the biggest no brainer. Like I love it. So we have multiple accounts now because for different reasons for the way our all of our leads are segmented and for follow up, et cetera. And I love getting the emails that say, here's your most active people in HomeBot. And I can go in there like, oh, Shanan, she opened the email 8 times this month. And like literally gives me a recap email like that. It's pretty amazing. So
Well, that's
it's
awesome. That's
real
awesome because
sticky.
when you think about, when you're doing a real estate review or you're sending a CMA or whatever, you just don't have that like much of an interaction point where this they can open multiple times, kind of like in BombBomb. You can see how many times they open a video, right? You can see the interaction with it. And I mean, especially if they can see what they can do with their equity or different refinancing or whatever. I don't know any other system that does that.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's really impressive. And so to me, that's a biggest no-brainer. Our sphere of influence is who we put on that first, and then we went and added every single past client, and you there, and now leads. So like it's part of our online lead generation follow-up strategy at this point, especially because we generate seller leads. So yeah, and it's got we've been using it for longer than this, but they now have an integration with Ylopo. So like as an
Okay.
example, Ylopo has a certain amount of budget that's directed only at sellers for us. And part of that is anybody in that they automatically go into to that HomeBot account for us.
Okay.
So
So they all have open APIs on the back end so they can hook together, parse,
yes,
work all. And if you don't know what we're talking about, start learning, because when you can connect systems like this that automate everything and there's doesn't have to be a human pushing it from one thing to the other. I mean, I don't know about you, Kevin. I am not good at details and I'm not good at remembering things like this. And I'm not consistent. So when you can have a system that does it for you automated, it just makes such a difference in conversion.
it really does. When I was working mostly like sellers, but still they were still internet leads, and it was still leads that I was calling every day versus like the way I participate in my business now. All I needed was, and this is why to me it didn't matter if it was Infusionsoft or Boomtown or Wise Agent. It just didn't matter to me. I just needed to know like, okay, I called Shanan today. This is what she said, or she didn't say, because I got her voicemail, and I can write that down in a note, and I can set myself a task
Mhm.
for fill in the appropriate time frame to follow up, and it will tell me that day when I log in. Like I can follow directions,
Yeah.
and so as long as I have that, like I was good. Now, obviously, we've totally polished that up along the way and try to do fancier and fancier things, and systems like HomeBot and Viral and Ylopo help us do that. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is we're trying to be in front of these people a couple times a month from now until the end of time.
From now until the end of time, not like a FISBO, now until the next 5 weeks, now until
Right.
the end of time, getting to
Yeah.
that extra mile that's past a year. And there's no fast forward button, right?
There is no fast forward button. And here's the deal. And if they buy and sell without me, it's okay that they made that mistake. I will give them the chance to course correct on their next transaction.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about it, right? And here's the other thing. This is not always a popular take. So I think people tend to be in one camp or the other. I'm of the mindset of I actually want these in separate. I like having these people in a bunch of different systems, because if you opt out of, say, my drip email, and I'll call it follow up boss, that's
Fub.
okay. You're still now going to get my viral email. You're still going to get the HomeBot, and I'm still going to retarget you with Ylopo. I'm good.
Okay, so that's brilliant because I'm using Fub as well, and it's tied to my BombBomb. However, I still need to be sending out separate them out of both systems, because if they opt out of one, they're not opt out of the other.
Yeah. So
That was worth the time of the interview right there.
that's one of my big deals when it comes to not just lead gen, but even with my sphere of influence. Like, because sometimes your sphere of influence, they tend to, maybe it's on accident, but if they, like, let's say say there's someone who's sphere of influence, they're always going to only buy and sell with you. And let's say they recently went through and bought, and they were getting notifications through your CRM for new homes in the city or town that they want to buy in, right?
Mhm.
They buy a house, and they you forget to turn those off, and they just hit unsubscribe so they don't get those notices anymore. Like, that is such a big miss. I want to be able to make sure that they're in this other system over here and this other system over here. Or what if they get on your dumb recipe of the month thing that they don't care about, but they really want the HomeBot valuation tool?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So I'm a big fan of having people in multiple databases in multiple places so they can pick and choose what they're unsubscribing from. Because when they see it come from one system, like I get so many things that I personally unsubscribe from, and it's like, oh, do you want to be a part of this newsletter, this newsletter, this newsletter? I'm like, no, I never take the time to select. I want out of all of it because you're annoying me at that point.
Me too.
And your clients are doing the same. So at least if they do that, they can still get the other stuff.
That's like such a great takeaway today, is to have multiple things, not just coming from one source. Because you're right. I mean, I get mad and unsubscribe all the time. Except if I was getting a HomeBot evaluation and it actually looked like a financial statement, I may not ever opt out of that.
Yeah.
And are you still doing recipes of the month? Because if you are, I'm really worried about you.
No, God, no. But
No,
I promise. But here's the deal, Shannon. You and I both know this. Like, realtors, they get in the business, and when they find success and they actually make it more than a year or two, they tend to keep doing the same thing for a long period of time. And there was a time where 15 years ago, you could get away with the recipe of the month, dumb type of email, right? And so there's some people, I promise you, that are very successful realtors that you and I both know, that they're still doing something of that sort. And it's that old saying of like, they're successful despite what they're doing, not because of what they're doing.
So the other thing, strategically looking at these different ways of hitting people, you're also hitting them based on their different behavioral styles. So like a C and a D on the disc may be really interested in the HomeBot evaluation, yet the high I wants to be on your viral marketing so they can see your pretty face, you and Fred talking to them all the time, right? So you're also hitting different behavioral types, because we do that like with our client parties. We're specifically targeting different age groups, meaning kids, no kids, adults only, or we're hitting different disc based on what the different parties are. You just told me you do that in your different communication styles, because one person may only choose one of those 3 or 4, except they have the ability to choose the 1 or 3 or 4 based on how they're hardwired.
Yes.
You do that on purpose, right?
Oh, absolutely, on purpose.
Yeah.
So the other piece that we do that I would have brought up if we were talking about the first 90 days or even the first year is one of the things I'm constantly talking to agents on our team about is call, text, and email, personal emails, like actually one that you write, not the drip email. Hey, Shannon, calling you about blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, or emailing you about blah, blah, blah. So they know, like, and by the way, did you get a new camera? Something so they know that you actually wrote it. And until you know which one they respond to the best and the most, do all 3. You got to do all 3.
Stop and take down that note, because I can't tell you how many times people use one channel, and it's their channel. It's not the other person's channel.
Yeah.
And I always say, well, did you call, text, and email? No, I called. Well, maybe they're a texter. Maybe they're on instant message on Facebook. Maybe they're, which channel do they live on?
Yep. I always say it this way to our agents, like you've got to meet them where they're at. Like you've got to get to them where they're at. And that's why especially in this time, this day and age, like you've got to be everywhere. You've got to be everywhere. And when you find that they are on text, or they're on Facebook Messenger, or their email, or they're an old school phone person, then cool. Make that the majority of your communication with them. But until you know that, don't presume that they don't like video, or that they love video, or that they don't like text, or that they love text. Do it all until you know.
And most agents, when I talk to them, they go, well, I know that they're not going to want to see me on video. No, that just means that you don't want to do the video, and that you wouldn't watch a video. Quit putting your judgment in the way of them and judging for them, because it's amazing when you finally get a hold of people. They're like, oh my gosh, thanks so much for keeping calling me. Like, I couldn't wait. I couldn't pick up the phone. I wasn't there, or whatever. And it's about consistency. And it also is, and you said this earlier, it's my job to follow up. And the most tenacious people that keep following up, especially if they are hard drivers, that's who they're going to hire. eventually, because that's who they want to follow up on their leads. That's who they want to follow up on the, the job of selling their home.
Yeah. And if they're like, some people will be like, yeah, but I don't want to annoy them. Like, so, let me be really, really clear. You're going to piss off some people if you're doing your job correctly.
Correct.
Like if you're doing your job correctly, you're going to piss off a few people, and that's okay. For every person, every buyer or seller that is offended with the how much you follow up, you're probably going to close an extra 4 or 5 deals for following up that intently. Apologize and move on. It's like this. Like I always say too, is if you're coming from a good place, you're actually trying to help someone. Like even if someone gets mad at you, they're not going to be mad for that long. Get over it. Just go.
And they may not even remember your name tomorrow.
They don't remember your name in 2 minutes. Nobody thinks about us as much as we think they think about us.
Right. You just got to go next.
Yeah.
Next. What else in closing, Kevin, do you have for advice? If people are just starting their systems or looking at, where do I go? What do I do? What would you do first?
I think you have to be really clear about who you are as a real estate agent. The way I like to frame it for myself is the relationship you want to have with your business. And like, what does that look like? As well as what are the things that you're willing to do every single day to nauseam? Like, what are those things? Because by the way, if you've been in real estate for more than 30 minutes, you already know it's not like HGTV maybe led you to believe. Like, it's not like that. It's not really that glamorous. Like the income, we have the ability to make a great income, and there's no doubt about that. But it's also pretty boring to get to that point. And so what are the things that you're willing to do? What are you willing to be bored with every single day to get to what it is that you really want? And be clear on who you are and what that relationship is. And then just commit to that. Like that, to me, that's where you have to start.
And commit to it every day over day, week over week, month over month for how long did you tell me? A year?
Well, so if someone says to me, hey, I'm thinking about buying fill in the blank leads, I'm like, cool. And how much a month does that cost? It's $500 or it's $1,000, whatever. Like, okay, cool. If you do that for 12 months in a row without it, like how many months in a row are you willing to do that without getting a closing? Like 4, 2, 7, what is it? And if that number is less than 12, I'm literally asking them to consider not doing it. Mm-hmm. So you got to give it 12 months. And so here's the tough part too, because we talked about accountability and things like that. Like you've got to be committed to that process of say a year. You also need to be flexible enough to know what the feedback is that you're really getting. And so hopefully you have like a coach in your life or a peer accountability, somebody who can help you see like get better at things, right? So one of it is with internet leads as an example, since we're talking about that today, it's like, you got to get better with the scripts and using all the different forms of communication, not just writing that check every month for 12 months, but you got to have that system and do all the work that is there to bring it all together.
You mean things like practice scripts and all that silly role playing and stuff?
All that really weird stuff that, just, it doesn't work. They talk about it, but it's not for me. That stuff.
I know. Yeah. Kevin, after I got back in the business, started selling it in 16. And the first thing I did is I went and got 3 role play partners, one from Minneapolis who did about 40 million, one from Orlando that did about 45 million, and one from Austin that did about 30. And they all 3 specialized in different areas because I really wanted to practice Sphere, FSBO, and expireds 3 times a week, 30 minutes a week for a year. Now, I had a little bit of experience before I jumped back into real estate after teaching Bold for 7 years and 6,000 coaching calls and all kinds of crazy. Yet I knew how important it was to practice, and I was bored out of my mind practicing. Yeah. So what Kevin's saying is go get into repetitious boredom, whatever it is, and practice whatever you're going to spend money on to make sure that you're getting the most out of your buck.
Yeah. Like if you're going to spend the $1 to get the lead, like spend the money to make sure that you squeeze every bit of juice out of it that you can. Like spend the time and spend the money.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Kevin Kauffman. It's been a long time. I'm so excited to see you. And I know that you're doing awesome. And I can't believe how old your girls are now. I am like amazed at how how much they've grown. So thank you. We'll see you next time in GSD, and keep getting shit real and keep getting shit done. We'll talk to you soon.